Hello, and welcome to Conversations for the Soul. One good sip at a time with Dr. Angie and Yashica B, the Eclectic Mindset Motivator. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are excited because we have a wonderful guest that we are introducing to you today, and we are going to have a wonderful conversation. Some of it will be sweet, some of it will be savory, but this is the show where those conversations take place between real women that have real talk about real issues. And today's issue is COVID-19. So I want to introduce to you Ms. Yashica B, the Eclectic Mindset Motivator.
Thank you for joining us tonight, this Sunday evening. What a beautiful Sunday it is. Tonight's show is going to be touching on that topic that we are so in odds about. Some people are still in odds about. Hopefully, after tonight's conversation, we can get more closure and we can understand a little bit more about the situation of COVID-19. We're going to talk to Diana Thomas tonight, who's a friend of mine whom I met years ago on the boxing trail. She is a business owner, a combat sport professional, and a mother of two. Diana has a story that's not quite what we've been hearing in the media. See, she contracted COVID-19 and she contracted it during full quarantine. She was at home. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Conversations for the Soul with Angie and Yashica. I would like to introduce to you Diana Thomas.
Hi, Yashica. Thank you so much for having me on the show. To you and to Angie, thank you both.
Thank you for agreeing to come and then letting us know. Now, wait a minute, Diana, recently we did talk about this, but you said fully quarantined and you contracted COVID-19.
Yes.
What we know as the pandemic, and was it 2020 last year?
No, yes, it was last year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, tell us a little bit about that with what happened. How did you know that you had COVID-19? Was it a certain type of way you were feeling?
Well, actually, I didn't know. I think deep down, I probably suspected that I had contracted it. Mm-hmm. My family always thinks that I'm over the top when it comes to precautions. Mm-hmm. I usually think ahead. I had some insight to the virus before it actually even hit the U.S. Mm-hmm. As being an issue. And so we had taken so many precautions to make sure that we were safe. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I'm a severe asthmatic. So I had been telling my family that we were going to have strict restrictions at home because I knew that if I would potentially catch this virus, I kept repeating, I'm not going to make it. If I catch this virus, there's no way that I'm going to make it. Mm-hmm. And of course, your family never wants to hear you say that. So they would repeat to me, don't say it. You'll be fine. We're all going to work through this. You're not going to get it. Right. So during that time, I actually had a friend of mine and that was working in the hotel industry, and she had two daughters. And so I was so fearful of this virus spreading that I actually I would not allow her to take her kids home. They stayed with us for, I think, almost 4 months, during the pandemic, because I knew she was coming in and out. If something would have happened to the girls, she would have to leave work. And I knew that my house was shut down, mm-hmm. With the exception of my fiance at the time coming in and out. Mm-hmm. So probably beginning of June, middle of June, I started experiencing some issues with my asthma. And I didn't quite know what it was, other than my immune system. I know anytime I have issues with asthma, my immune system is compromised.
So I want to jump in real quick. You said you were home.
I was home.
All by yourself? And then you had
my fiance, my 16-year-old daughter, and my nieces.
Okay, so they were there with you, but no one was going in and out of the house except for your fiance.
Other than my fiance, yes.
So when he would come back into the house, would he do like proper safety precautions? Would he take off his clothes at the door and shower and all that before he came into contact with you? Or how did that whole thing work?
Right. So first correction is actually a she.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's okay. So she would, yes, definitely get out of clothing. And because she was aware of what my health issues were, she was always extremely cautious.
Okay.
So she's military, and the military had made the necessary precautions within their unit to arrange for there not to be more than 2 soldiers in the building at a time. So they were even taking certain precautions to ensure that nothing would happen. Of course, to their own staff members.
Right.
Coming in, you have to come out of clothes, immediately getting into the shower, clothing goes into the laundry room. No one was really coming in. If I had friends that were also quarantined, we may sit on the patio, but we were distanced from one another. I was, limiting, making sure that people weren't coming in, because honestly, I was extremely fearful because I
And it
knew
sounds like
what
not
my
just
health issues were.
fearful. It sounds like not just fearful, but also keenly aware of
Yes.
what you needed to do in order to remain safe.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you were exercising those precautions.
Absolutely. And, I think, looking back on it now, and I didn't really think about it until you stated that, I realized that many times friends and family members thought I was overreacting, because the media is portraying one thing, but we know something different. And as I mentioned, I had a little bit of insight. I work with because I'm in a combat sports field, I was getting updates from people in other countries where their countries had been hit severely. So I was actually able to pull my daughter out of school 2 weeks before the schools even closed. I was taking necessary. I'm sorry. Is it too bright on my video?
Yeah, it did kind of brighten you out a little bit.
I'm gonna close my blinds. I apologize.
Okay, go ahead, because we do want to see you.
Yeah, I think the sun just changed position
Yeah.
as we were on, and that changed the look. But
Right.
you were fine. So let's see. That's the beauty of live.
How is that?
There you go. That's better.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, I had a little bit of insight, and so I knew the dangers that other countries were seeing, and I've seen just how the U.S. handles media in other situations, and so I knew that I couldn't depend on that. I needed to kind of trust my gut, and that was why I was
when you say other countries, what countries were you aware of?
Australia, Italy, the Netherlands, as well as Africa. Those were probably the primary. But my initial contact came with a colleague that's out of Italy. Okay. And they were hit severely, really severely. And so that was the warning that I had to start moving to do things differently within our household.
And you said that was about 2 weeks before everyone else got.
Yes. So actually, it was more than 2 weeks. I started receiving messages from them probably maybe the end of February, middle or end of February is when they started giving me updates. And I was scheduled to travel that following week. And my daughter and I were the only two on our flight with masks on. And Yashica, I don't even know if you remember seeing on my social media, I had like an entire hazmat suit on because I was getting ready to fly. And people were like, "Oh, you're crazy. You don't need that." And I was like, "Okay, y'all playing. We got something coming. We need to be ready." So, yeah.
Wow. So you were prepared ahead of time.
Yes.
And you were keenly aware, and you were vigilant in terms of making sure that your house was safe. And you managed to somehow contract the virus.
Still contracted it.
It also brings back last year too of how many uncertainties that was given, the things that was given at that, because you said this is the beginning of June. Is that correct again?
So I started feeling bad maybe 2 weeks into June, 2 or 3 weeks into June. But the entire month of July, I was sick. And I'm trying to remember because there were some things that are foggy around that time. And so my timeline may be kind of off a little, but I can almost remember pretty much all of July with me not doing well. And it was so much so that I had actually barricaded myself into one of the rooms in our house. And so I would not come out other than going to the restroom because I was having issues with my breathing. And so I didn't want to either pick something up or thinking that if I do have it, I don't want it to give it to the rest of the household.
Okay.
Wow.
So Diana, so even at this point, something's wrong. You're having difficulty breathing and you're also asthmatic, but you still have not gone to test yet, right?
So after about 2.5 weeks or so of maybe 3 weeks of me not feeling well, I went to the hospital. My asthma had gotten so bad, and I have this process. I've had asthma my entire life. So I've always been able to maintain it, whether it be through inhalers or a nebulizer. So I did the procedures that I normally do. It was just difficulty breathing. I didn't have any other ailments. I didn't have any issues with my sense of smell. I didn't have a fever.
But intuitively, you felt that there was something different.
That there was something different, but I knew that my asthma was an issue. But of course, there was a part of me that was saying, but you haven't really come in contact with anyone. So it's just your asthma.
So a little bit of denial. So walk us through how you became aware that you actually had contracted the virus. How did you become aware of that?
What was that turning point to say, you know what, I need to get up?
So at one point it had gotten so bad that I was using my inhaler more often than not. I was actually using it several times within an hour. And I visited the hospital, and based on all of the symptoms that I had, I was never tested for COVID at that time, but based on my symptoms, it really all reflected my asthma. And probably a week before that, I realized that there was something else that was going on with my body. So I usually go and get hydration treatments that, help to nourish the body and make sure that you're getting all the vitamins that you need, but you receive it through an IV.
Stop right there. Explain that
concept.
I never heard of that before. You said the hydration treatment?
It is. So hydration they have hydration facilities pretty much everywhere. And I learned about it several years ago from our fighters many times when they would train, they lose a lot of weight and the electrolytes. And so you can actually get an IV that gives you a lot of the nutrients that you need in order to keep your body healthy.
Right. So is the average Joe able to go and get this done? Now, where would we go for that?
There's a wonderful place here called Revive that's here in Columbia, and they are amazing. Great staff, great location, wonderful prices. It's always a good idea to have hydration treatments.
I guess we would just Google hydration treatment in our local area.
I will send you the information for them so you can share it with your viewers.
One thing that I wanted to point out, because listen to, Diana again, I'm just going to reiterate, being extremely cautious, knowing something's going on, protecting yourself, and then going one step further with your natural routine of staying healthy. You hydrate yourself, and still you contracted this.
I still contracted it.
And not only, I don't want to cut you off, but not only did you contract it, but what happened next is like mind blowing. Can you share that?
Absolutely. And I want to just kind of back up just a little, and then I'll go right into that. When I went to the hospital the first time, the doctor prescribed me prednisone, and that was just to kind of keep my lungs open. They provided me with a breathing treatment. The prednisone was for 5 days. I was to go home and rest. Well, I was taking the prednisone every day. It worked, but it worked until it didn't. And I realized that my lungs were still not functioning the way that they should. And it was completely different than any other asthma issue that I've had in the past. So probably 2 days before my prednisone refill went out, I told my fiance, something's wrong. I can't do this. And of course, you have people pushing you and they're saying, no, you got it. You can do it. Just get up. You just need to get up and move around. Get up and take a shower, eat something. And I was like, I can't, to have a feeling that you just can't do anything. I could have died right there on that couch. That was how I felt.
Diana,
I just couldn't. Yeah.
At this point, Diana, so are we still on 2 weeks, or have we moved into the third week now?
We're in the third week at this point.
This is the third week. I want to reset the stage for people who are just coming on, because there's a lot of people coming on. We're talking to Diana, and Diana is a true COVID survivor, and she's given us her account of the timeline and sequences of what happened. But not only did Diana contract COVID-19, but she took every precaution that you could think of to protect herself, because she already knew she had the underlying health issues, such as being severely asthmatic. So as we're listening to Diana tell her story, we'll stop every now and then to come back and just let the audience, as we're bringing more people in, because this is really and truly interesting. So if you're out there, please like and please share and tag people if you know any people who are asthmatic, if you know any people who, like myself, was on the fence about this thing, and then also, because I'm learning stuff. I mean, some stuff as I'm listening to this story, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper. And so I just want Diana to go ahead and pick it up where she was saying, because remember now, this is 3 weeks. And if we remember from the beginning, they said the symptoms start coming about 3 or 4 days and only last about 10, right? But wait a minute, you're 3 weeks.
That wasn't the case.
We're not talking about a work week, 40-hour 3 weeks. We're talking about 3 whole weeks.
Right.
We're not talking about a Monday through Friday weekend off.
Right.
Okay, so let's
while we're in this station break, let's just grab a couple of comments from our audience, because we like to involve them and keep them engaged while we are speaking with you. So Mr. Davis says hello. Pele says talofa, beautiful ladies, happy soulful Sunday. Shalanya McGee says good evening, beautiful ladies. And we want to remind you to please like and share, tag others to this conversation. This is an important conversation to be heard as well as to engage with. So please, right now, stop what you're doing, like, share, and tag, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that others can be aware of this program while it is going on, while we are in progress. And Joe says hello, and I know he is he's not in the United States. I don't remember where, but I know he's
Slovenia.
Slovenia, right? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Dr. Grace says, not the hazmat suit.
Yeah, he did that.
I had a whole hazmat suit.
He did that.
It was a full, and I was prepared to wear it.
Wow. And not just prepared, you did wear it.
I didn't wear it to the airport because everyone talked about me so badly.
Oh, okay.
But I did post it on my Facebook.
So you allowed the peer pressure to keep you from being safe?
I did. Well, I didn't wear the hazmat, but I definitely did wear a mask.
Okay.
The only way I was traveling was with a mask, and that was enough. And it brought a lot of stares. There were people who made comments, and one woman confronted me in Walmart and said, you know that mask is only for people who are sick. You're not supposed to wear a mask. And I said, no, we're supposed to. But, of course, I had to catch myself, because normally I would have something sarcastic to say. Why are you worried about what I'm doing? Right. But, I just kind of realized that not everybody has the capacity to really protect themselves. But it was just up to me to make sure that my family was protected.
And not only that, the information was coming out in dribs and drabs, and it was changing. It was, one day it was wear the mask, next day it was not wear the mask, and next day it was wear the mask again. So, I mean, we had a lot of fluctuating information that was coming in, and they truly did not know enough to guide us. So the fact that you had insider information from other countries is really helpful, because they had already started experiencing the things that we would later experience. So it was good to have that information, because you were able to protect yourself and protect your family. And the way that it was presented to us became a political issue.
Exactly.
So that's why people were approaching people and having so much to say about what you were doing or what you were not doing. And unfortunately, straight from the head, they were given permission to get in other people's business, so to speak. And it did not fare, we as a country just did not fare well because of how it was presented to us.
Right.
And I truly believe that we would not be where we are right now today had this been handled better from the top, had it been presented to us as factually as possible.
Absolutely.
With as much fervor as it deserved. But unfortunately, we all know what happened, and we know that we are now suffering because of that. So,
absolutely.
So anyway, just to go ahead and reset, I just want to continue on with a couple of more comments. Dr. Grace says, please, it's so important to listen to your body. Mr. Lasper, hey girl, haven't seen you for a while. She says, so very glad that you are here to tell your story. Thank you, God. Yes, thank you for being with us and for being vulnerable and being willing to share that story. So go ahead. You can continue on now. I just wanted to take that moment out because we like to engage.
Absolutely. Well, and to all of your viewers that have commented, hello to you guys, and thank you for tuning in. I hope something that I say benefits you or someone that you know. So I think the last thing that I mentioned is that I had been to the doctor. They gave me the prednisone. I was then sent home, and finally, like those 5 days almost seemed like a month. They went by very slowly, and they were very difficult. And even the encouragement, from my fiance was not really. It was difficult for me because I knew what was happening to me, but I also realized that she was trying to help me, just kind of encourage me to get up, and I could not do it. So I had scheduled an appointment for my primary care physician, and we went for that appointment, and I was unable to even get out of the car to go into the office. So they called someone out, and he did not even COVID test me. He looked at me and said, you need to get her to the emergency room right now. Wow. And so we immediately left that appointment. We got to the hospital. But one of the things that I didn't mention is that a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks or so prior to that, I was unable to speak. So if you've ever heard someone that has had a stroke and their speech is very difficult, that is how my speech had become. Even opening my mouth would immediately cause me to start coughing uncontrollably.
Wow.
So not being able to talk.
That could be scary. Tell us what was going through your mind when you were experiencing these symptoms.
So first of all, fear, that if I go to sleep, am I not going to wake up? If this is going to be okay, am I fine? Could I potentially give this to my family? And then also the fear is what if they can't save me, because I know that I have a weak immune system.
So how did your daughter?
Thing. Yes.
How was your daughter responding to all of this while you were, undergoing these symptoms? And
she was very strong. I did not see a moment where she had even an ounce of fear. And if she did, she didn't tell me. Okay. Awesome. So, teenagers are resilient. So they just kind of move, and she's seen me sick before. So I don't know that she, I think not only are they resilient, but I think our kids today are a little desensitized. So we have a tendency as older people to react differently because of our experiences. We know how severe things can get, where younger people kind of feel like, it's probably bad, but it'll be all right. They'll kind of get through it. So she was very helpful with just kind of staying out of the way. My fiance would not allow her to come into the room that I was in. So we made sure we kept her away. Thankfully, we have enough space in our home where we can avoid one another if we want to. So that was helpful. But then,
that is a very interesting point that you just brought up, because that was one of the issues that was highlighted in all of this, that people of color lived.
Don't get it.
No, people, well, that too,
That
because
was the
originally
first, yeah.
that people of color didn't get it. But the other part of it that was highlighted was that people of color generally live in closed in spaces. So they weren't
Yes.
able to, socially distance in their own home. They weren't able to, if someone had it, then they pretty much all could be guaranteed that they were going to get it because they couldn't separate within the home. But the other piece of it is that their neighborhoods were so close that even if they came outside, they were still kind of on top of each other. So they didn't have the luxury of being able to truly socially distance with just the environment that they lived in. So that was a real key point that came out of this. And there were a number of them. So as you talk, I'm sure we're going to be able to pick up on a few of them.
Mothers, yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we were initially said people of color don't get it. We were told that. We were told that people of color don't get it. And then come to find out, we were the ones who were contracting it the most and the most severely.
Yes.
It was impacting us the most. And that was because of our comorbidities, our pre-existing conditions that were impacted by all of this and impacted our immune systems and all that. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So of course, like I mentioned, I had to go to the emergency room immediately. And because most of my records are at a different hospital, I actually asked my fiance to take me to the one that I'm used to going to. And while there, they admitted me, and typically they're not allowing anyone to come in. So they did allow her to come in so she could speak on my behalf since I was unable to. And they tested me immediately. They did an x-ray. And before the results came back, a doctor peeked in and said, "We have to admit you, your oxygen levels are extremely low. And we're seeing a mass on your x-ray that looks like it's definitely pneumonia, but it looks like there may also be COVID there." So regardless, they admitted me. And the precautions that they take.
COVID. I did not realize that they could actually see COVID in the x-ray.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. That's interesting.
Apparently there's a white mass that appears on, and I never saw my x-rays. So I'm basically just going off of what I heard them say to me. But they stated that there was a mass that they saw. I had pneumonia in both lungs, and they were waiting for the COVID test to come back. But during that wait time, the precautions that the hospital staff takes is amazing. You see nothing but their eyes. And even with their eyes on, they still have another shield that covers their face.
Isn't that scary in and of itself?
It is. You ever see the shows where you hear people talk about something the government does, these test procedures, and they come in with full masks because they want to, make sure that you don't have anything that can contaminate them or the world.
It just reminds me of the movies, the scary movies, the virus movies where they come in the full hazmat suit and all that, and they can barely move with all the stuff that they have on. Yeah, wow.
I mean, I guess it didn't really look like a hazmat suit, but they may as well have been in one. They were just in typical hospital gear, but of course things were doubled. So they may have, a gown on. They had their scrubs on, but then there was a gown on top of that, and then another gown that fit over the front, and then of course the hair tie, the mask, the gloves, I don't know, it looked like another cover that went over their gloves, just to ensure that there was no possible way that they would come in contact with any fluids, or anything that could potentially get them to contract COVID. And then, of course, upon them entering the room, they sanitize before they come in. And then before they even leave out of the door, they have to remove all of that stuff at the door, trash it, sanitize again, and then leave the room. And so because of the severity, they actually had me under 24-hour surveillance. So there's a camera that points directly at the bed, and the wing that they set up at this hospital was the wing that they use for tuberculosis patients. So they have a machine, and that machine is pumping the bad air out of the room, out of the entire building, which was another scary situation.
Was the hospital, would you consider that a suburban hospital, an urban hospital, big, large? Like, what kind of descriptors could you give us about the hospital itself? Because there was a lot of talk about PPE and staffing and equipment and all that. How would you characterize the hospital that you were in?
Well, so I can say the hospital if that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I was at Baptist Hospital in downtown Columbia off of Taylor Street. Staffing was amazing. Every doctor and nurse that I had, they were amazing. Through everything that I went through, they made me feel extremely comfortable. They were very kind. I think I probably had one nurse that was a little short, but I had her for a short period of time, so I was, okay. But overall, I did not see any of that. But then again, the time that I was hospitalized, I was never able to leave the room anyway. So I would only know what was happening once they came into my room, and they were pretty much just tending to me anyway.
And how long was your stay?
I was there a little over a week. Okay. And so I'm sure my stay would have been longer had I gone in earlier, to be treated. But the concern is that even at the time that I had gone in, I tested positive for COVID. And so I had to contact my family to say, listen, you guys now need to go get tested. Now, my fiance, now wife, actually did test positive, but our daughter was negative. Okay. And so she never contracted it.
Oh, praise God for that.
No, she never contracted it. So one of the other things to mention, and I'm sure because my fiance was bringing food into me every day, I'm sure that contact with taking the things out. I don't know if we have a feeling that she brought it home to me, but there's nothing concrete that we can say. But her symptoms were not as severe as mine. She did have issues with breathing, extreme coughing, chest pains, headaches, body aches, things that you would typically feel when you have the flu, or if you're having issues with your allergies. And the entire time, she really thought she was having an allergy issue. So she would take her allergy medication. It would work for a while, but still not getting rid of whatever was happening. And that went on for weeks.
So what week are we on now? I know we passed 3. Now we're in the hospital. We're on day 1 hospital. So what week are we on now? Is it 4 weeks?
So probably about 4 weeks or so. So I think we're probably at an entire month at this point.
Okay.
That I had been down. Mm-hmm. And then once I got into the hospital and they got me into a room, as I mentioned, I notified, my fiance. They went and got tested. And from that moment, that first day, and this is where things, one of the things that happens with COVID is, as severe as it gets, some people start to experience hallucinations. Mm-hmm. And so I was in and out of time. There were things that I would remember. My mind was really still sharp. Like, I could text my friends, I could text my family, and I could talk as if there was nothing wrong with me. But my body was definitely not there.
So how severe was your body? Were you at a point where you could have died, or were you at a point where... Yes. Okay, talk to us about that for a moment.
So once they explained to me that I was positive for COVID, they were going to treat me. The only doctors that I saw were infectious disease doctors from that point. And their responsibility was to just try to keep me comfortable, because at that point, there was really nothing that they could give you for COVID. They could give you medication to keep you comfortable. They were giving me an IV with antibiotics to make sure that I didn't develop any other infections. They were giving me a shot 2 times a day in my stomach to prevent blood clots. And I was getting some other medication. Mm-hmm. Is that me? It's me.
Huh?
I think my daughter has something on. Give me a second. I'm going to turn this off.
Okay. Angie, where did you go off the screen? Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was beeping in the background.
Oh, I thought I had something in the microwave.
I was
We all into the conversation. It didn't matter. I heard it, but it wasn't no big deal.
So funny, Diane. Your mind is still sharp. Nothing happened.
My mind is still sharp. Yeah, my mind is still it's still sharp. And I had a friend that was actually getting married that first weekend that I had gone in right after that first week. And I can remember texting, being really positive because I knew what I was dealing with, but I've always been a person that just wants everyone around me okay. So I knew that things were bad on my end, but I was still trying to encourage everyone around me, so I would say I feel really horrible. Things were going on with me, but trying not to have anyone think that it was too bad.
At this point, how bad is it for you?
At this point, I had a feeling that I may not leave the hospital, but of course, everyone was telling me you're going to be fine. We love you. My fiance's family was calling and praying for me. My family was calling and praying for me. I had friends that were texting me. So, you're kind of in the middle because there's a part of you that's like, this is not going to be good. But then there is another part that has all of the encouragement that's coming from your loved ones around you. But then you also have the uncertainty with the doctors. And, I can honestly say through everything that I've been through, I was always sick as a child. I've never seen a doctor scared. And every doctor that came in, I saw and felt a form of fear on them.
In their eyes. And
yes, because that's all I could see were their eyes.
Right.
I couldn't see anything else. So that was something that just stands out. And probably after I don't know if it was the second day or I want to say it may have been the second day, because as I mentioned, that time I remember like key points in it, but there were moments that I wasn't as lucid as I would like to have been. And so one of the infectious disease doctors came in, and I can remember I asked a lot of questions. And I asked questions because I need to know so I can prepare. And I remember asking him, am I going to make it through this? And he kind of looked at me and he grabbed my hand and said, we're doing, and, I'll never forget because he's got this glove on, and this doctor is holding my hand with both hands. He's cupping it. And he said, we're doing everything in our power to save your life. We're doing everything that we can. And he's shaking my hand as he's saying it. But I could see his eyes, that he was truly scared. He said, we're really just trying to make you comfortable. And so later, I don't really remember if it was later that day or maybe like early that morning, that another doctor, other than that one, there had to have been a shift change, came in and he said, your vitals are dropping, and not vitals as in, like my blood pressure was good. I still didn't have a temperature. My appetite was still there. But I guess when they draw your blood, the numbers that they're looking at, those numbers were actually dropping, where it was showing that my body was starting to fail. And so he came in and he said, I think at this point, you need to start making calls to your loved ones and saying your goodbyes. Because he was saying at that point, he said it could be anywhere from, he's giving me this time period, it could be hours, up to 24 hours before, at the level that my numbers were dropping, because mind you, they're taking my blood 2 times a day. And sometimes 3, depending on how the numbers are coming back. And so that's when I started calling. I'm saying goodbye to the people that I love. I had to say goodbye to my son, and my son's in the military. He's getting ready to go to the field. And, I'm having to tell him, look, mom's not going to make it. And then I'm texting my daughter, things to tell her what to do, things that I'm thinking, if I'm not here anymore, I don't want to, I guess not that I would really know if I didn't tell her anything, but in my head, I'm thinking I've got to say this. And she made a little joke and said, Mom, is it any more jewels you want to drop on me? And I said, I just want to get it all out. And I called my brother and said, I need you to help my fiance make sure that, she has all the support with raising, my daughter. And, so it's all of these things are happening because I now have to say goodbye. And then I called my fiance and I'm like, listen, I'm about to die. And I use those exact words.
Wow.
And she responded and said, she actually got mad at me and said, don't say that. You're not about to die. She didn't believe me. And I never got a chance to say, no, they really just told me I'm not going to make it out of this.
Wow.
And probably several hours later, I got a call from a doctor. And so I'm guessing that doctor had to have come in the evening. So that following morning, I remember looking at my cell phone. It was about 9 a.m. And a female infectious disease doctor called and said, we have a test procedure that we're doing that has a 30% chance of survival if you take it. Basically, at this point, if you don't take it, you're not going to make it. If you do take it, there's a 30% chance that you'll be okay. And it was called the convalescent plasma transfusion. And it's where they take the antibodies from a recovered COVID patient and they give it to the patient that was suffering with COVID. And at that particular time, this procedure was only available to people who the doctors knew were not going to survive if they had not taken this treatment. But the stipulation is that you could not have been on a ventilator. And so I was very blessed that I was still able to breathe on my own without the ventilator, but it would have been only a matter of time before I ever would have, passed away or had to have been put on one.
So Diana, how did this, okay, I'm looking at all the comments, and then of course we are very, very spiritual people. How did this doctor call you? What was the connection?
So, to be honest with you, I don't know. Okay. Let me just say what I believe.
Say what you believe.
One of my best friends is an RN, and we have been speaking about COVID for a long time. At the time, she was working with the facility, and she was, I want to say, almost daily on these COVID calls. So she herself had a lot of information about new test procedures they were doing. She worked in an industry where there were more elderly and assisted living, people recovering from ailments, things like that. So she was a confidant that I trusted to kind of help guide through this because we knew she had the medical experience to understand what was happening. Mm-hmm. And I know that this procedure was something that was being done through the Mayo Clinic. And so my guess is that because this was something that she had been doing even out of Chicago, I assume that the doctors here in Columbia and pretty much everywhere else throughout the US must also be involved in these same type of calls. So what I do remember her saying to me is that I needed to give her an answer before 11 o'clock because they had an 11 o'clock meeting every single day.
And this was the doctor.
This was the doctor.
He was waiting for your answer to say, yes, I will do the treatment, or no, I'm not going to do the treatment.
Correct. Because there was only a certain amount of patients that were getting the treatment anyway. So from what I remember reading, there were different hospitals were allotted when they would have this powwow. Doctors would step up and say, we have a patient that qualifies, but there's only a certain amount of numbers that were getting the treatment because they were short on plasma.
So what made you
educating people?
What made you decide? What decision did you make, and how did you come to that decision?
I called my best friend and my fiance was on the phone, and I said, listen, we actually called her on three-way, and I said, listen, they are talking to me about this treatment, and I took pictures of the pages, the information sheet, because I'd already filled out my, my last living will and testament, and they brought all these papers in for me to complete for do not resuscitate and all of that. And I had taken pictures of everything to text to my family so they could read it, because no one could come into the hospital with me. And I sent them to her so she could read it, because I didn't understand it. You have a person that's hallucinating, they're just heard that they're about to die, and so that was even before
That's a whole lot.
It's a lot, been sick for a long time. My body's weak. I'm seeing my ancestors talking to me. I'm talking in my sleep. All of these things are happening at one time.
And you're alone.
The other part of it,
yeah.
Part of it is at what Yashica just said. You were alone.
Yes.
And the other piece to it is you were in and out of lucidity. So at one point or another, you would be able to think and process, right? And then find yourself not able to do so. That's almost worse to me. I think I'd rather be all the way out or all the way in.
You're right.
Because in and out, that's like, oh, now wait a minute. Like you
what's real, what's not
with yourself,
Yeah. So we called her, and she called back. She said, "Give me a moment. I'm going to check something." And I don't even think 5 minutes went by. She called back. She said her exact words were, "Sign the papers right now." And I remember being afraid, because it was a little bit, by that time, enough time had passed. It was a little bit after 11 o'clock a.m. And I was like, oh my God, I've missed the deadline. That's it. My chances are done. And I called for the nurse to come in, and I said, listen, I'm going to go ahead and do the treatment. And they started making calls, and those hours were really tough, because they came back to let me know that they were going to push through for me to get the plasma, but they could not find my blood type. So every hour, my fiance was calling to say, hey, have you, because I'm calling her, and I'm like, you've got to ask them, I can't even speak to these people. So she's calling saying, hey, what's going on? What's the update? And they finally found it.
How is it that you went to a hospital that had all of your records, but they didn't have your blood type?
No. That's not what she meant. They know her blood type. She has a rare blood.
Oh, they didn't.
You have to have a certain type of blood.
Yeah, I'm like, now wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, I misunderstood you. I'm sorry.
Not only does she have COVID, she's asthmatic, and then she's had health issues, but she has the nerve to have a rare blood type. Diana, my gosh.
Well, so I don't know that my type was rare. I don't think it was the fact that the type was rare. The problem is that people had not been notified. Like, after people were contracting COVID, this was the first time, we're talking July. So COVID's been an issue since
March,
or at least that the media has been telling us. It's been an issue since March. And they were not telling people to donate plasma after recovering from COVID. And apparently the one COVID donation can save the life of 3 people.
Wow.
And so people were recovering, but no one was going to donate plasma. Or some people maybe had never been tested, and there was nothing on record. So there was no media awareness put out there to tell people to go donate plasma.
Because this is the first time, when you talked to me about it, that was the first time I heard of it. Yeah, I had no idea. Did you know anything about that, Dr. Angie?
Well, only from what I had heard a few months ago. I didn't hear anything back around that time, but I have heard of it since then. So I was aware of that. I know that they were pushing, really getting people to try to donate their antibodies, because they needed the antibodies in order to do a treatment. Now, what treatment that was, I didn't know, but I knew that they needed the antibodies from those who had recovered from it. Yeah. So real quick, I want to ask you to speak on the long haul. My understanding is that after someone has contracted COVID, it's not just the in the moment situation that we have to be concerned about. My understanding is that there are long-term ramifications. Have you experienced any of those? Are you aware of them? Are you
So I've been officially diagnosed with what is considered long COVID. And right after coming home from the hospital, it took me almost 4 months before I was able to do anything. Just walking to the restroom was like running a marathon. I had to be bathed. I needed help getting up out of bed. I needed help doing everything. There was nothing that I was able to do for myself. Even speaking was difficult. I was unable to walk up and down my stairs, but those were all because my body had really gotten to one of the worst weakened points that I've ever been in. And then I started feeling better. Probably around November, I started feeling better, not 100%, but enough where I was able to either fake it or still maneuver with my daily activities. But I was also...
Tell us what percentage you're at now.
I asked that question again, please.
Tell us what percentage you would describe yourself at now. Are you at 100% yourself now?
Definitely not.
What?
So I'm probably about maybe 60, 70% better. I have a lot of things that are, the past month and a week or so, I've been doing extremely well, where I'm almost back to my normal activities, but I definitely feel some slow times in the evenings. It becomes more difficult for me. But I was experiencing other things, like my hair fell out. I developed these severe headaches. I had never experienced headaches before. Severe body aches, body swelling, rapid heartbeat. There was a list at that particular time that I did the survey. I want to say there were like 170 symptoms. I think there are well over 300 symptoms out there now. But at that time, I had 99 of the 170. And so as I was explaining to doctors what, the things that were happening to me, they were telling me that must be something else that was happening because it was not being related to COVID. And I had an aunt that stepped in and started doing some research for me. And then I, of course, had to do research on my own. I found that long COVID was something that was being experienced outside of the US. People have been sick for about a year and a half now. So well before the US had even been made aware of COVID. And it was causing some great strains on people's daily activities. Marathon runners unable to walk anymore.
Let me interject right there because we're running up on an hour and we do have people that are still just coming on and we have great comments in the comment section. So we're going to extend Conversations for the Soul because this is such good information and we're live. So whatever happens live happens. And I think our audience knows that. So again, we're gonna go a little bit longer tonight. So because again, to me, this is very valuable because I'm learning some stuff. We learned about the hydration, which I knew a little bit about that, but I know people in the chat box didn't know about that. We're learning about something called long, L-O-N-G, COVID, like a long run, like a long COVID, long COVID. And until you mentioned it, I hadn't heard of that. What about you, Dr. Angie? Have you even heard of that?
Yes, I definitely have heard of that. That's something that has been discussed in a lot of different circles at this point because they are saying that younger people may not be sick at the moment. They may be asymptomatic at the moment, but then down the road, after they have been tested, after they have tested negative, now they're starting to develop symptoms long after the fact. And I was aware that they were saying that they had, they called them long haulers, right?
Long haulers, yeah.
Right.
Wait a minute, we have the Lasper says that her sister has that now. So the Lasper, we're going to be sharing Diana's information because this is somebody who's a true survivor, to make sure that we can maybe connect and to know that somebody actually is, and we're talking about that too, about the Facebook group, because I learned a lot. I mean, I was just like glued to what she was saying when she was telling me all about this stuff, because I didn't know that, and I just really want to make sure we get the word out on as much as possible. And the last percent, please do, Diana, that we give your contact information, so that, because her sister. So again, and it's difficult when you don't know anybody that's going through what you're going through. So how do you talk? How because then if you try to tell somebody, because like you were saying earlier, even with you having asthma, oh, it's just asthma, you'll be okay.
Right.
You're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Get up, because that's what you see and that's what you know. And so you didn't have that person over there saying, wait a minute, now we might have to take this a little bit further. So I'm going to stop it. And I'm grateful that you chose to accept it and come on our show and talk to people, so we can really get this information out, because this is valuable information, even with the plasma. Again, because I didn't know that. I knew about plasma, but I didn't know that this was something that could help families with COVID, get through COVID.
Right.
Like, to me, we would have been talking about that before we talk about hydrocodone, whatever. I be messing up. I could chew up some names of some stuff. So so I'm just so thank you. I mean, for giving the information, and just let's just keep going. I just want to throw that out there again, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking to Miss Diana about her life before, with, and during now, living with COVID, because technically you're still living with it.
I'm still living with it. Yeah. I've been really grateful that I've had some good days coming up. I had a little bit, I spoke to you earlier today, and I had a little bit of a relapse that started yesterday. And I have those moments, and I think that's probably what I'm most fearful of now.
So when you say relapse, what does that look like?
So because all of the symptoms that I have, some of them I could have 5 of them one day, 2 of them another day, one day nothing until later in the afternoon. They come at the most unsuspecting times, and it could be a severe headache. It could feel like I have numbing in one of my legs. One day I was driving and I actually lost hearing in one of my ears.
Wow.
Feeling like my feet are on fire. There are all of these little things, issues with my eyes, blurriness.
So are they ever new symptoms that you have not experienced in the time that you've had it, or are they the same symptoms but just at different times?
Same symptoms, different times. So we're speaking about, as I mentioned at the time, there were 99 of the symptoms that I had, and some of them are kind of all grouped together. It could be a joint issue, but I feel it in my knees, my ankles, my feet, my hands. Sometimes it could be my wrists that are hurting. Other times it could be a headache. Sometimes I have these phantom smells. I could be sitting there and I think that I smell something, but I know that can't be what I smell.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Phantom smells. I know what phantom pain is. How do you, you smell something, but it's not there. So
it's not there. Like, I could be sitting here and think, oh, I smell something burning, but there will be nothing burning around me. Or I could say I smell coffee, but I know that no one in this house drinks coffee, but I could actually smell it. And it would be so random, but you don't really, sometimes things happen. And I think we've grown accustomed to telling ourselves that what we think is not really happening. It was like, oh, it must be something else. We brush it off.
Or we say we're crazy. Oh man, I'm
exactly
crazy.
Yeah.
But you're not crazy. You're experiencing this thing that, because people are not talking about it, they're not having those critical conversations. They feel like you're on your own. You feel like it's just you, when it's not just you. And that's one of the big things I think that have come out about the vaccinations, because people are now starting to report things about the vaccinations that they received that they didn't necessarily associate with the vaccine, and therefore just thought that, oh, well, I'm crazy, I feel this, I feel that, whatever. and they were not reporting it. But now that they are, I believe, reporting to like a international database that they're reporting these things, they're starting to see that there are some commonalities, and that, you know, this is not just a figment of your imagination, that these things are truly happening because they're happening with other people. And I think it's also important that we recognize that we sometimes we talk ourselves into having symptoms because we hear other people say that they had it or whatever, and then you say to yourself. So it's a very fine line. It's a delicate,
delicate, yeah, it's like a delicate thing. Yeah.
yeah.
You know, one of the other difficulties is because the medical professionals that we put all of our faith into, many of them, as educated as they are about medicine, they're uneducated about COVID.
Yeah.
And so they're not supportive. And that was what I ran into. You know, doctors, when I had a ovary rupture a month after I got out of the hospital, which was never happened to me in all of my life. My daughter had to call 911 because we had no idea what was wrong with me. And I was still unable to speak. And when I got to the same hospital that I had been in with COVID, a female doctor in the ER said to me, "Why are you speaking like that?" And I said, I was trying to get out to say I had COVID and this was something that happened during COVID. And as soon as I said I have COVID, she turned her head and said, "COVID doesn't do that to you. Why are you speaking? It must be something else." I wrote a complaint. I never heard back, but I, you know, was focused more on my healing. But I remember the feeling at that time, like, you're a medical professional. I'm telling you about something that has affected me, and you're telling me that it can't be accurate. You know,
Let me ask you this: was that doctor
COVID?
Let me ask you this: was that doctor a doctor of color?
You know, that's my son.
She was not.
So, you know where I'm going with that, right?
I do. Now, let me tell you this. Every doctor that I had, every infectious doctor that I saw during my hospital visit was a Black doctor. And every nurse, with the exception of one, was a Black nurse. And I usually never like to say that there is a difference, but the reality is that there is. Nurses and doctors of color, and I really don't want to generalize it, because there are some great doctors out there, regardless of what their ethnicity is. That we have some amazing medical professionals. But my experience has been that there are more doctors of color that are more compassionate, that have more patience, and not necessarily just of color, but minorities. Because my primary care physician happens to be Mexican, and he's a phenomenal doctor, you know, but he's very patient. He listens. And I'm finding that you don't have that across the board, but this particular doctor was not kind. She was very dismissive. And I knew that the hospital was aware of how severe my case was, because they actually gave me morphine because of the amount of pain that I was in. And, you know, they're not giving nobody morphine.
Right.
You know, that's one of the last things they want to issue out to their patients.
Right.
But the level of pain that I was in. Yeah.
It slows your heartbeat down. That's one of the ones when you're in your final stage,
Yes.
they'll give you morphine.
Yeah. Well, I got it on that visit, you know, because of everything that was happening. And was immediately sent home, and I haven't had a problem with that since. But I've definitely had a plethora of other issues. And then, you know, you have the other issue in our community where we have some people understand it, some people don't. Some people think it's real. Some people say it's a hoax. Then it was, you know, tied to political ties. And, you know, then you have people who are saying it's just like the flu. And then people are saying, well, you're negative now, so you should be fine. And all of us are different. You know, this virus is not like anything that any of us have ever seen. And it's affecting us at an alarming rate, and we're not educated about it. But our media, our government, our medical staff, they're not telling us everything. So we really have to take control and protect ourselves and our families.
And what you just said is bringing me to the point that I want to make with you. With the experiences that you have had as far as this goes, from, as Yashica mentioned earlier, she said before COVID, during COVID, and now after COVID, the entire span of that experience, are you able to capture that experience in a way that can be helpful to others, that can, I don't know, could you start a support group? Could you do a Facebook group? Could you, like, are you doing anything along those lines? Have you written a book? Have you journaled? Talk to us about how you can transform this experience in a way that will be helpful to others. Because when we first came on, the very first thing you said to me, and I think this may have even been before we were on camera, when you said to me, I hope that what I say tonight can be helpful to someone.
Yes.
So with that being said, and looking at this wealth of information that you have, this vast experience that you have gone through, how can we transform the information that you got, the experiences that you had? How can we use that very valuable information to affect the masses, to somehow basically turn your pain into your purpose?
So, to first answer your question of what I've been doing, I have really just strictly been doing more word of mouth. Initially, I did a lot of Facebook posting with educating people to donate plasma. That was the main mission that I had. Even during my hospital stay, I was just posting about donating plasma. I shared my story once publicly. This is just my second time. The first time was after a couple weeks after I had gotten out of the hospital. I shared with everyone on my page about what I had experienced and kind of encouraged people to donate plasma to potentially help others. I considered doing a support group, but I decided against it. I am in a support group that's online. And for me, I didn't find that it was really helpful because many support groups have people that are really just coming to complain about their ailments. They're not really getting any assistance to fixing it. They're just like, hey, I got headaches. Who else has headaches? And then you have all these people like, I do, well, that doesn't benefit me.
That leads to the other thing that I said, we kind of start gathering up stuff that
exactly
that we don't really
stuff from other people. Like, well, my pinky toe didn't hurt last time, but now you're talking about my pinky toe, and now my pinky toe hurt. So those were things I just didn't want to be in that situation. I needed to be able to process what was happening with me, to be able to explain it to my doctors, to figure out a way to heal. I have a wonderful support group. My family has been absolutely amazing. I have an aunt that started doing research on, there is actually a therapy clinic here in Columbia that offers rehabilitation for long COVID survivors. And the gentleman that runs that program, he himself is a COVID survivor. So he suffers from some ailments as well. But now it's a wait because I'm waiting to get into rehab, to start getting myself acclimated to some of the, fixing my diaphragm, my lungs. They look better, but I still can't get on an airplane. I have difficulty driving for long periods of time. Anything over 40 minutes to an hour, I'm swollen and everything waist down is in pain. I still have difficulty sleeping. So to answer your question, my goal is to just kind of share my story as much as possible. I don't quite know if I'll ever write a book because I don't know what the solution here is. And things are constantly changing with me. One day I'm good, another day I'm not. 1 hour I feel perfect. 30 minutes later, I feel like a truck hit me. you know, and I just need to lay down. And I'm grateful I've had some really good weeks, you know, behind me, a couple of really, really good weeks that I have been able to function, but I'm still nowhere close to what my life was before COVID. And Yashica's known me for a while. I'm very active. I'm always moving. I volunteer. I help in so many different capacities. I'm always traveling. I'm extremely active with my daughter with school. These things are, I have not been able to really get a grasp on my life. And it has created anxiety in me. I have issues going out in crowds. I don't like being around a lot of people. So the past few weeks that I've been feeling well, I'm trying to get out more. And
so that brought up a very interesting point. If you could speak to your mental health during this process, tell us about what your mental health was doing while you were having this physical health crisis.
It was horrible. I was, and I'm hoping I don't start crying because this is actually
that's okay. We real now.
Listen, this would be the first time that I've said it to a few people, but I was severely depressed. You know, my Texas sounded great, but
can't they sound good when you're depressed, girl? Boy, you can put together an artistic text when you're depressed.
You can, you know, because you can make people think whatever.
Right. Yep.
I was completely broken. I was depressed. I could not even muster up the energy to do anything. I felt lonely because I'm watching the world around me move. You know, and then there was a bit of hurt too, because I'm thinking to myself, I just almost died. And I'm watching people that I love and care about maneuver as if nothing has happened. You know, they're going to parties, they're going to clubs, they're going to cookouts, they're traveling out of the country, they're going to Vegas, you know, they're doing all of these things. I'm watching, you know, family and friends just move as if nothing has happened. And it was hurtful to me because in my head, I'm thinking, you know, someone personally that something like this happened to, and you can't think beyond your own, you being inconvenienced because you can't kick it with your people anymore. So now you make these reckless decisions. And then some of them, I had a couple of family members that, you know, distant family members that will call and they'd say, hey, we want to come visit. I just saw online that you were just in Vegas. No, you can't come to my house. Wow. You know, because to them, they think, oh, well, I'm fine. You know, I don't have any symptoms. Or people will say, you know, well, we check our temperature. I had COVID and I never had a fever. So the temperature means nothing to me because that's not even a sure symptom of being positive with COVID. There are plenty of people walking around with COVID that don't have a fever. There are some people that have it and have absolutely no symptoms. Wow. So, and then of course, the infectious disease doctors explained that I could contract it again. So there's still precautions that have to be taken.
So with all that being said, and what I didn't hear you say, but what I heard in my own heart and mind was also a little bit of anger.
Yes, not anger, but frustration.
Okay.
Definitely not angry, just frustrated.
Okay. I think I would have been a little angry, to be honest with you.
Well, you know,
I do have some issues.
I couldn't really get angry because it was their lives. You know, I can't get angry at people. I'd always say, people are gonna people. And however
I was getting mad when I saw rallies and you know, and people fighting over fighting security guards because they were asked to wear a mask. I was getting mad. I'll be honest with you. I was really getting mad. And then also there was a big part of me that was depressed. And, I struggle with depression. I go, I have other issues that create depression. And I had to keep reminding myself, don't go down that rabbit hole. Like I had to keep, because it's difficult not being able to see your family. The holidays are coming one by one, and you're not able to interact with your family. I haven't physically seen my mother other than through a door or through a window since March of last year. It's been it's been an entire year. Haven't seen my father, who lives in Georgia. Haven't been able to see him since Christmas. Not last Christmas a year ago. So and then to have people fighting over putting on a mask, saying that this is America, I'm not wearing a mask, and I should have to for being like, it just drove me crazy, to be honest with you. So I just want to say that I'm sure you ran the whole gamut of emotions. And I know each of us had our own sets of emotions that were going on. Some people were angry for the opposite reason. They were angry because we were doing what we were supposed to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it was it's an emotional situation. And with all that being said, I'm looking at the time, and as valuable as this conversation is, I know that we are pushing up on an hour and a half. And I want to, at this point, give you an opportunity to say whatever it is that you feel needs to be said to the general public regarding this issue. So I want you to just take a couple of seconds, couple of minutes to really think about, if you had to sum up this situation and what people need to know, how would you do that? How would you put that out here? We're going to give you the platform to be able to do that.
I think that there will just be 3 key points that for me are most important. The first is, I don't care what's happening, wear a freaking mask. Not whether it's for you or for the next person, just wear it. Make sure that you are taking the necessary precautions to not only save, yourself, but someone else, because no one knows how this virus is going to affect them, whether they catch it one time or multiple times. The second thing is, listen to your family and friends. If they are struggling, be supportive, even if you don't understand it, even if you don't believe it, because the mindset that they get into with depression, the loneliness, the struggle, battling themselves already with their health issues, the last thing that they need is not to feel supported or cared about in a manner that makes them comfortable.
Compassion, yes.
That compassion is very important. And the third thing is, go donate plasma. After I received my donation, I met several other people that happened to be very close friends of mine. None of us knew the other had contracted COVID, and we were all saved by the plasma donation.
So now talk to us about the plasma donation. How does that process happen? Do you have to have a certain kind of plasma? Talk to us about that process.
So the plasma is taken out of your blood. It's anytime you can go, and I don't know what that, because I don't have a medical background, I don't know that process and how they pull it. But they're able to pull plasma from everyone. There is a survey that you can do online, and I'll be happy to send you the link. You can share that with your viewers. You can put your information in. They'll ask you a series of questions. You can go down to one of the plasma donation centers. They are able to see whether or not you have the antibodies.
And they pay you for it too, don't they? Don't they pay you to donate plasma?
There are a lot of plasma donation places that will pay anywhere from $75 to $400. So I don't care what your incentive is. If you're doing it just because you want to help save lives, or if you're doing it for the money, just do it. Encourage your family and friends that have recovered from COVID. Donate the plasma. As I mentioned, one plasma donation can save the life of 3 people.
So is that healthy plasma, or is that plasma that has had the COVID virus antibodies developed in it?
COVID that has had the plasma antivirus, antibody virus,
Okay.
virus antibodies.
Gotcha. I'm
Now,
sorry. That's
they
me
do
messing you
test
up.
it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. They will test the plasma because, of course, you have the chances of catching, Hep B, Hep C, HIV, those type of things. So, of course, they're going to test the plasma that comes through to make sure that they're giving you a clean sample of plasma. But it's important for that donation to take place because it's saving lives.
I did want to ask you one question because we didn't even touch on it, if you don't mind answering. Because I've never heard of plasma transfusions. Is that what that was?
Convalescent plasma transfusion is the name of it.
What was the procedure? Do you remember what they did to you? Was it like
Yes.
Okay.
It was through an IV. So they have this plasma and it's like a yellowish cream color. It looks like mucus almost. It's real weird looking.
They come down quick.
Yeah, and it's in a bag, of course, and it's really not a lot, but it took it was administered to me over a 4-hour period. And they started it. I think they found the plasma and it had to be shipped in. And I had started about 2 a.m. and it went on until it was complete. So after they give you that plasma, you're supposed to get 2 doses of it, but they were only able to find enough plasma for me for 1 dosage. And thankfully, that 1 dose stopped my numbers from dropping.
How soon was that? What time frame are we talking about? Because I know right before this took place, you were in a very bad state.
Yes.
Then 4 hours, the plasma is pumping through, the new plasma. So when did you start noticing a turnaround?
I did not feel better until about 3 or 4 months after.
Okay.
Wow.
So, and they
you attribute it to the plasma. You do attribute feeling better too. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so yes and no. I contribute. My life was saved because of the plasma, because that's what caused my numbers to stop dropping. And then they have a follow-up medication that they provide, and you have to take, I think it was either 4 or 5 doses of that. And that medication is how I want to say seal off, but I know that's not the proper term, but it's a medication that goes in conjunction with the plasma. I did not feel better when I left the hospital. I felt the exact same that I did when I went in. I was like, Lord, I am not going to make it through here. I'm still going to die. But when I left, I could see the difference in the doctors. And that doctor that had held my hand actually came back. And I said, how are things going? He said, you're going to make it. But this is the same doctor that just said, we're doing everything we can to save your life. So to see the difference, and I hear the difference in his voice, to see the difference in his eyes, they were quite sure. But mind you, my vitals looked good the entire time. I never had, any other issues other than if it weren't for them being able to draw that blood, there's no way that they would have known how badly COVID was affecting my body.
So let me ask you this. At what point did you realize, hey, I am going to make it? When did you know that you were in your mind and in your heart of hearts that you were okay, that you had crossed that bridge where you would be safe, you would be okay? When did you know that? And when they were telling you all these things, when they were giving you the bad news, did you at any point give up after you made your calls and your texts and had your conversations and all that? Did you give up, or did you say, hell no, I ain't going nowhere, I'm going to be here? Talk to us about that.
Okay, so I'm going to answer your second question first. I didn't give up, but I had come to a place of peace. So I can, and I know this may sound crazy to some, but it's what happened. It's my reality. I remember hearing, I have family members of mine that passed at a very old age that I had wonderful connections with. And I can remember whether it was a hallucination or happening in my head, they were really talking to me. And I remember continuously saying, okay, they were saying, just be strong. You got this, just be strong. And I can remember continuously saying, okay, that's all I could get out was okay. And one of the nurses came in and she said, are you all right? And I said, yeah, I'm good. But I was not able to process the fact that they weren't actually there in the room with me. Like in my head, I really thought that they were there talking to me. But I had gotten to a point where I was okay. I had said goodbye to everyone that I loved, that I needed to say goodbye to. I had sent text messages to, some family members that I needed to just kind of tell them, hey, I love you. And, this is not going to be a good outcome. And I was literally at peace. I had gotten to a place where I said, if I die, I am perfectly fine with that. Like, I'm okay. I'm not fighting it. I wasn't angry. I didn't feel like there was anything in my life that I hadn't fulfilled. I knew I had raised 2 wonderful children. I had a wonderful, life partner. I had a wonderful family. Like, I was really completely at peace. So I don't really consider that giving up. I just consider that you never think about that. I think sometimes you kind of feel like, do you want to fight for your life? But I was just at a place where it was like, you know what? If God said it's time for me to go, thank God he gave me an opportunity to say goodbye. That was the way that I looked at it at that moment. Your first question. What was that first question again? I have brain fog too. That's one of my other.
Me too. I haven't had COVID.
Yeah, I have brain fog too. The first question was, no, what was it?
So essentially what I was asking is, did you want to give up, which is what you just answered to?
Yeah.
And then the other point was, when did you say to yourself, oh, I have crossed the threshold. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be fine. I am fine.
I had 2 times. There were actually twice that it happened. The first was when that doctor came in and told me that I was going to make it, that my numbers had started going up. And so I remember leaving the hospital thinking, when they were rolling me out of the hospital, I flashed back to remembering when they were bringing me in. And when they brought me in, I was like, I'm not leaving this hospital. I'm not going to be able to leave this hospital on my own. I felt that I was not going to leave the hospital. And leaving out, there was a moment it was like, I made it. And then seeing there was security staff on that floor, the doctors, they were all telling me goodbye, feel better, make sure you rest. And so that moment I was like, I survived. I made it. Mm-hmm. But then after I got home and I realized how difficult everything was, not even being able to sleep, I began to be scared because I thought, yeah, I was okay. But what happens if this virus is still so unknown? So I went into a space of, I might die within this time frame. And then as time went on and I started actually seeing progress, then I got to a place where, and this might be TMI, but I guess you said there's people in here that are struggling. There were days I could not even shower. I could not get up. Of course, I couldn't stand, but I did not even have enough energy to want to even clean myself. Mm-hmm. And that's
part of the question too, because I've been there.
Yes.
With being depressed, there's been, times in my life where a week has passed and I haven't taken care of my hygiene because I've been depressed.
But let me say this. It's really hard where your mind wants to do it, but your body can't do it.
Right. That's a difference.
That's where the struggle is that you physically just can't do it. And everyone around you can't quite understand. Mm-hmm. And I remember my fiance saying, you got to get up. because I had a friend that wanted to come by and visit me, and she said, "You got to get up. You got to get up. You got to get in the tub." And I looked at her and I just started crying. I was like, "Please don't make me get up out of this bed," because just to sit up in the bed was like, oh my gosh. I was like, just let me die. Like, if I have to get up, if I even have to sit up, I just rather just not be here. So those moments were difficult. So that second time that I knew that I was going to make it is when I was actually able to get up out of the bed without assistance. And I was able to make it to the bathroom and make it back into the bed without needing help. I was like, wow, I'm going to make it. But mind you, like maybe 2 months had gone by before that was even possible.
Wow. So a lot of us, when we have near-death experiences, it changes the way we see things. It changes our perspective. It helps us to understand and see what really, truly matters to us.
Yes.
Did you find that following this experience, I know you're still in the experience, but following the part where you realized that you were going to live, did you want to change anything about how you had previously lived?
Yes, I changed everything.
Okay.
There are friendships that I no longer have, which is, it was a little unsettling. So there was a grieving process that I went through during that time. But what it did is, I think we all talk about when we get older, we always talk about how old people have this sense of unbotheredness. They just don't really care about anything around them. They say what's on their mind. They live in their truth. They don't care how you feel about them. They done got too old to be trying to worry about how somebody else feels about something.
Right.
And I have to say that I was always in that space in a sense anyway, but I've evolved to the spirit of an 85-year-old man that
Oh, wow.
it's like whatever. It really opened eyes. So I started throughout the process, I started meditating more, paying attention to some things, focusing on my own personal growth, valuing relationships a little differently than I had been before. I've always valued relationships, but I found that many times I was putting more effort and time into forming solid foundations where that same energy wasn't always being put in by the other people. And so I did more focusing on myself. So the things that changed is I recognized self-care as my first priority.
Nice.
So even when it came to my kids, I love them, but I had to kind of back up a little bit and, just kind of say, hey, listen, I might be your mom, but it's still about me first.
Nice.
Good for you.
Well, with all that being said, and I just want to thank all of our participants, all of our viewers who have made comments and those who have been on the show without making comments, but have joined us and hung in there for the show. We thank you so much. Yashica, I want to, as I always do, I want to give you an opportunity to close us out. Diana, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for being vulnerable, for being open, for being honest, and just for being you.
Thank you so much.
I thank God that you survived, and I know that before this is all over, you will thrive. So
thank you
so much for joining.
I appreciate you both for letting me be on here, and I just want to say, because I know she's going to see this later, I am so grateful to my wife because there's no way I would have been able to make it through all of this had it not been for her. Just to be able to have a person that just unconditionally, loves you, supports you, and took on the responsibility at our age to take care of someone fully,
even when you didn't take a shower.
I was like, I look back and I'm like, you should have just made the whole bed, should have just turned into a pool. You should have just put a whole pool. Like, you're thinking about
she'll agree about the water bed.
but those are things, you when you think about things where people say that they're always going to have your back, you hear stories about people not being supportive. And so, she did everything. She even made sure, like, she didn't even tell everyone all of the dirty deets of all of her responsibilities, and even with her being positive for COVID, she still, pushed through all of it and made sure that our family was okay, our household was okay, and supported me. And I'm just, forever grateful, as well as all of the other support. We had a wonderful support system, meals, people taking care of my daughter, just everything. So, while my journey has been a difficult one, I just want to say I had an amazing support system that helped me through it.
Awesome. Thank you.
So thank you again for letting me tell my story. And if any of your listeners have questions and they would like to contact me, I'd be more than happy to give information. And I'm going to send you those links.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're going to give us some information. If are you able to plug in your contact information, or how do you want us to that? Put that in the chat box and let us know. Now, if you're concerned about privacy or whatever, we can facilitate being, middle women for it, if that's.
So I, as Yashica mentioned, I don't know what I just did that has my screen weird now. I work in the combat sports field, so my number is out there to so many people, and I'm used to them calling. The only request that I have is please don't call me late at night, because my sleep is off, and not too early in the morning. So if you call me between, sometimes I get to sleep late. And so, because my body won't rest, and I try to sleep in the morning. So I'm pretty available most days. So if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'm okay with publicly providing my number.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to drop you down to the backstage area. Go ahead and plug in your information. I believe you can do that even if you're in there. And I'm going to join you backstage and leave Yashica with her final message that she is going to give to us all. And I want to once again just thank our viewers for participating, and thank you, obviously, but thank them for just being willing to endure over an hour and a half with us tonight. So we are grateful for that.
Okay. And also, Diana, if you have time to go back and look at the comments and watch it again and read and interact with the people in the comment sections, that'd be awesome. Just wow. I mean, I always have a lot to say, but listen to Diana's story, it almost leaves you speechless. Yeah, me being speechless, right? But I still have to leave everybody with this. As we listen to her story and how powerful and how close to death she was, and we just cannot continue to go through life taking life for granted, taking each other for granted, taking relationships and friendships for granted. I mean, we bicker, we argue about stuff that's not even important. And even with my own self, because I always tell you guys that I'm very transparent. I'm very transparent with my own stuff. Even some of my own filters in my life, I need to just take out and dump them in a trash can, because they're not even important. I'm living. And I always say, when we wake up on this side of the dirt, to do something different. Do something better than you did yesterday. Tell someone else that you love them today, that you didn't say you love them to yesterday. Be nice. Smile. Show gratitude. Even when it's difficult, do it anyway. Because the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I'm a living testimony. I'm a living witness to that. I can be very harsh and be very bold sometimes, but the life journey, COVID-19 came through this country, and it rocked and it shaked, and it's still causing tornadoes to spin off of that hurricane, as we are losing people to COVID-19, to just, it's just unheard of. So we, in a sense, just don't have time because we never know the day and the hour. And I'll be real quick, and I'm starting. We're going past our time because as Diana was telling her story on how her body was reacting to COVID, I could not help but remember how my husband's body reacted to ALS. And it was so many similarities of your body just dying on you, and you can't do anything about it. As her mind, remember, stayed sharp for a long time, but yet her body could not move. And that's a lot of things that goes on with ALS patients. And with that being said, it taught me not to just live for the future, live in the moment as well. Live in the moment, and whatever you can do in this moment that was different from what you did in the other moment, then do it. Just don't cause any havoc or harm to anyone else. Love your neighbor. I ain't say be in love with them. I just said love them. And so I will leave you with that. Yashica B, the Eclectic Mindset Motivator.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Yashica B. Once again, thank you to our viewers. Thank you so much, Diana. Very touching story. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I want to leave us with as well is just be kind to one another and live in the present. Be present in the present, because sometimes we're there, but we're not there. Right. And I just think it's important that we be there for one another. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next Sunday, 7 p.m. And we'll talk to you then. Please like, share, subscribe, tag, do whatever you got to do to get this message out there.
Absolutely.